Welcome to Ask Mountain Bike Coach. Getting ready to get Jeremiah in here. Stoked! So stoked for this one. It's going to be good. I love Jay. He is so amazing. Stoked to have him back on here. He's been on here before for Ask Mountain Bike Coach. So it's going to be a good time. So jump on in. Here we go. Injuries are hard and they can suck. And you really have to be okay with taking time to let your body heal, right? Because you just can't jump back on and into the things that you used to do, right?
Right. It's the same thing. Like everybody is an experiment of one, so every experience is a whole different thing. And a little bit of the backstory, but like a lot of people don't know the full backstory of just the way I've lived for the last several years. Is I actually wrote it down a little bit. I put some of my stats that I'm less proud of here.
Dude,
Uh,
I was break.
So this was either my seventh or eighth major surgery. Let's see. I am into double digits on concussions these days. I've had, if you don't count like fingers and toes, I've had, I counted up last night, 18 plus fractures and breaks. And I have spent a cumulative total of nearly 4 years of my life not being able to walk under my own power. So I've been through a few injuries. I've learned a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that came from moto, racing moto. Some mountain, some. Like I grew up in Texas, so like we played football, and we played football like we weren't going to live forever. Like we played hard and we got hurt, that kind of thing. So, but been down that road a few times, been through it. I think it's really important, like as we get talking about some of that injury mindset and all that, like keep in mind the timeline. Like some of the strategies I use are more for like you're broken, you're down for several months, like it's going to be a while before you're back in it. Because like the strategies and the things that work for me on that kind of timeline, it might be a whole different thing for somebody that's just like, oh, you got 6 weeks in a brace or something like that. It's a little bit different. So
And honestly, I think people are stoked to have you back on, Jay, because it's kind of a vulnerable space to talk about this. And you're a dude. A lot of guys don't embrace that and like see it as almost like a weakness, but these are things that everybody goes through. Doesn't matter. Like everybody goes through these.
Well, I mean, it's just like your time off the bike with that. There's a lot of parallels and metaphors for like maximizing your time on the bike, and a big part of that is like take control of it, do it on purpose. When you get injured, don't just be like, oh, I'm along for the ride, ho hum, and you're gonna sit around waiting and not do anything about it. Like you have to be proactive about it. Even if you can't be proactive physically, you have to be proactive here and here, or else it's going to get over. Like it can get over on you pretty easy.
It'll put you in a bad space, right? A space
Yeah.
that you don't want to be.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. My first note, was like, okay, we want to talk about staying positive during an injury, and my first note was like, you won't. Like, you're not going to. Like, you're not going to stay positive during an injury. Like what you're seeing now of like some kind of uplifting and all that. Like these are glimpses. Like this is every day. Like the day to day is like I'm pretty grumpy. I'm kind of like let's focus and let's grind and like let's do that. But like I mean it's not fun. It's not fun. Like mountain biking, especially for me, like it's such a big part of who I am. It's not a hobby. It's not a thing I do occasionally. Like it's my main source of income, my main sense of identity, my main coping mechanism, my mental health outlet, my main physical outlet, all of that. So like, and then, I mean, you can take all of that away, the injury away, and you've got so much to deal with these days from like mental health battles that we're fighting. I mean, it's 2022. Like, look at the last couple of years. Like, we're all dealing with a pretty heavy dose of crazy, right? And like, and not having my usual outlet to cope with, like, it's tough. It's tough. So like, there's a bunch of notes with that. Like, the one thing with like you know, an injury is like when it first happened, I made notes in my phone. And I was just like, okay, let's take like the main things that I've learned before I get this tunnel vision going. Like, let's put some notes on the top of my to-do list on my phone just to remind myself. And like, number one, be good to Becky. You know, like she's along for the ride with me on this, you know, like she's right there. Like, be good to her, you know, like that whole thing. Cause like when we ride, there's a good saying, like when we ride, danger is real, but fear is a choice. Well, I started thinking about, I was like, well, when you're injured, you know, being depressed and being mad about being injured, that's real.
Yeah.
But being an asshole about it, that's a choice. You know, you know. So like, number one, don't be an asshole, right? It should be everybody's first rule, right? But like with an injury, that's such a big one because you got like the pain, you got the frustration, you got the pent up nature of it. Like you're not being able to burn that off. You know, it's just kind of like you got to remember, like, don't take it out on everybody. And it also involved a couple conversations on the front end of like, hey, look, if I'm getting salty, it's because something hurts or I'm frustrated or it's not you, you know, it's
Yeah.
not a thing. Like,
Oh,
just have
yeah.
the conversations with the people around you, because like, I mean, I tell you, like, you know, it's rough enough on its own, but like if you start alienating and frustrating the people around you or getting hostile with the people around you and you lose that support, like, you want to talk about a dark hole there.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to get real bad, you know? So
Yeah.
gotta be good to the people.
Yeah, that's
Like,
such a good way. I've never thought of it like that, but it's so important because typically, like, the people that you have around you and are taking care of you, those are some of the closest people that you have in your life. So you definitely don't want to burn those bridges, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, you know, that's huge. It's like, don't let, you know, the pressure that's building up in you get vented on them, and like make sure they know that that ever does happen, that like, you know, hey, that's a me problem. I'm sorry it came out. You know, like we have those talks pretty regular.
I love it.
And then like, so that was like the first note I made, and then like the next one, this one that's really really resonated with me is like, it's an injury, not a punishment. You know, like, yeah, it's an injury. I'm not like, you know, I'm not like feeling like I'm, you know, being punished and need to like take my whooping kind of thing. Like that's a big deal. Like, you know, it's something like the whole experience, it's going to be what you make it. You know, you can, you know, wallow and be miserable and feel like, oh, woe is me and all that. And like, guess what? That makes you heal slower. You know, like you can, you know, you get, but like there's also not like the whole like be positive and use it as a, you know, it's an opportunity to grow. Like, yeah, those are true things, but like shut up, man. Like, I ain't walked in months, you know, like
Yeah. And dude, that's so true because I especially people see, like take mountain bike skills, for example, and you and I are both coaches and they see, us doing demos and like getting that demo the first time and they don't see all the back end of like the practice that it took to get there and how many times we've done that demo in front of people and like all of this other stuff that goes into it. And then it kind of puts it in perspective, right? Like, okay, all right. But I love that point. That's such a good point, dude, because
yeah,
you know, yeah, it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, positive growth mindset, all of this. I talk about that all the time. But yeah, sometimes shit just sucks, right?
yeah.
You
Sometimes
have to
you know,
acknowledge it,
like,
right?
and
And
like, you
move.
know, that big part of my personality. I think back to like whatever Avengers movie that was, where you got Bruce Banner, the Hulk guy, and they're like, I thought you could only turn when you were angry, and he turns, he's like, well, I'm always angry. And it's like, well, I get that, you know, like I can be good to people and I can be happy and I can be bright and I can do all that, but like that's an intensity that is always here, and it's not always like woohoo party time kind of thing. Like sometimes it's like full on, like, like, pretty aggro, pretty dark, and like I've learned over the years like how to turn that into focus and how to, kind of turn that energy and that like I don't want to say like hostility, but it's like a different form of aggression that you're capable of, and turn that towards like set a goal, set a vision, set whatever, and like push towards that. And like,
Yeah.
that's really, really, I mean, sometimes that's the energy you got to, figure out how to use that energy to get you going, cause like, sometimes you don't want to get up and spend the 45 minutes it takes stretching just so you can move from your bed to the bathroom. And, like sometimes that part sucks and like you're over it, but it's like, you know what? You can't quit,
Yeah.
like this is life. Like, this is how it is. Like, buck up, like that
Yeah.
kind of.
And Jay, it's like one thing that I love. I mean, you know that I love you, but one thing that I love about your attitude is like your awareness for this is so huge. And yeah, you're human. You have those days like we all do, right? But like you choose your mindset towards it, like how you're going to respond to those things, right? Is it going to be crappy? Is it going to be like, okay, I know I have to do this again, so let's fucking do it. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Like at this point, it's like, as soon as I got hurt, I was like, okay, like let's start making notes. Here's the things we're going to need. I think it was within like 48 hours. I had like my book list on Amazon was like on the way. I had, I went and, one of the things, like I had one of my big injuries several years ago. I went and bought an Xbox, and it just like made all the difference in the world. So I did the same thing this time. I went and tracked down a couple generations old PlayStation. I was like, I'll grab it. Like let's get the kind of tools that I know will help and get them together, kind of thing. And like that actually gets me to another point here. Like it's so it's dealing with an injury, especially like a longer timeline. Like these are some of the big things that help me. Is like, number one, understand like this is going to be a bout of depression, but it has a warning. You get a heads up, like, hey, things are going to get really shitty, but like you can get ready for it right now. So then like that really helps me, because then like it gives me something to be proactive about right away, and it gives me the opportunity to do some things that really help me. So like with this one, like I knew going into this I'm going to be down for several months. So I took all my bikes and I had them cleaned, lubed them up, boxed them up. I sent them to my dad's house, got them where I can't even see them. I don't look at them. They're not collecting dust. They're not sitting on flat tires. I'm not tempted to, ride them earlier than I need to. Like I got them out of there. I took all my gear. I, packed it all up, put it all together, tucked it away in a good safe spot. Like all that kind of stuff. I kind of get it out of there. It's like I call it almost like remove the depressants.
yeah, for sure.
Like, and that's one of those things, like on a several month long injury, like seeing that stuff, like it makes you sad. And you get
Yeah.
like you're like FOMO kind of thing, like you're big time missing out, and you're like, it just sucks. And then so there's that aspect of it, and then there's also the aspect like financially. A lot of people, like, if they get hurt, they're like, oh, I'm gonna be down for several months. Like they'll sell everything, and then whenever it comes time, like if you need to do that to cover the medical bills, have a reentry plan. Like
Yeah.
that's a tough thing. So like have a reentry plan. Like, that's actually some of my backstory. How I got deeper into mountain biking was I injured myself again on the dirt bikes and the moto racing, and I had to sell all that stuff because it was one of those injuries where like it was a couple surgeries, going to take all that. So I sold all that stuff, and when I started coming back, like I still had the mountain bike left, and I started using it as a recuperation deal, and fell in love with it there. And I was like, man, I don't need the motos anymore. Like I'm really enjoying the mountain bikes. Like some of my backstory there, but like, removing the depressants. Let me just kind of check my notes, make sure I got some of those. Yeah, like like I stashed the bikes, stashed the gear, got those things in a good safe spot. That also is like whenever I do get better and it's time to ride, how cool is that going to be? Like you've seen how blingy my bikes are. Like I'm going to open them up and they're going to be spotless, and I get to build them and put them back together. It's like new bike day again.
You're gonna be like Christmas. You're gonna be so.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than being like, oh, it's all covered in dust and the seals are cracked, like it's going to be like, I'm setting myself up for like a cool moment, then
Yeah.
in a couple months whenever it's time. So, um, that's good. Also like my social media feed, I went
Yeah.
in, just kind of fixed it where like my Instagram feed wasn't just like constant riding videos
Oh
because like
yeah.
like the same videos that get me psyched to ride
Yeah.
make me sad. Like they make me sad. So it's like, okay, let's get those out of there. Like let's get those out of there, and then like when the time comes and I get closer, I bring those back, and then it's boom, motivation again.
Yeah, you'll get stoked.
Yeah, so like and it'll be fresh again. It's like another reset. That whole thing, and then
Yeah, taking time to like filter that feed, which I think we need to do all the time anyway,
yeah,
right?
that's a full-time job in itself, isn't it? So, that's a big note too. Is like don't be afraid to unfollow something if it makes you feel, you
Yeah,
know,
like
like
right?
it's
Leave it all.
okay. Oh, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then some of the other notes, like right away, it was like, okay, um, yeah, I've seen too many buddies. I'm 37 now, and I can't tell you like well, when I first got into mountain biking, I got in with like a lot, older crowd and all that, and like I've seen this life cycle, and I've seen it happen to so many people where like they get injured, they put on 20 pounds. Whenever it's time to get back on the bike, it's too hard, and they end up quitting.
Yeah.
Oh, like, yeah, so it's like, okay, like, what can I do to not stack the odds against myself between now and when it's time to ride again? It's like, okay, I got to modify the diet.
Yeah.
Before I'm riding 6 days a week, I'm getting after it pretty good. I can eat whatever I want, like any bakery I see, like cookies, like I everything. You take that away, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, like you need half portions, you need more veggies, like you reel it in, like make choices with that. Like, I mean, I'm feeling thicker than a milkshake right now. I'm about 10 pounds up, but I've also been in the gym a lot, so I like to think at least like 3 of that's muscle. So I don't know, but
Yeah. I just want to say, like, I note right now, like Jeremiah, Becky Joe too are like the king and queen of like, dude, they eat all the good food. Okay, I
I,
love over. They have like the best treats, cookies, whatever. It's always a good time. Like we are eating good, okay? Especially after yeah. Yeah, it's something you have.
get after it on the couch. Yeah,
I
but
love
I mean, like with your gear, with your bikes and all that, like set yourself up for your big comeback. Like don't
yeah.
put barriers between you and where you want to be. Like there's already enough of those. Like don't stack them up against yourself. Don't have it where like, not only are you going to be like on your face whenever you try doing cardio again, like don't be sitting there going like, oh, like now I got to lose 20 pounds so I can, have fun again. Like, try to do some things to help yourself out. Find, something, whatever you can, just don't stack the odds against yourself. That's huge. Um, Establish the distractions and the new coping mechanisms. That's been a big one. Also call that like focused variety,
Yeah.
like find the other things that you like. Like I used to do a lot of stuff other than just ride bikes, and I've totally forgotten about that because it's been so many years of just bikes, bikes, bikes. And
Yeah.
so it was like this whole like I knew part of this injury would be like an existential crisis because like everything revolves around bikes, and all of a sudden it doesn't. Like, oh my God, what do I do? And it was some things that I had to do is like, okay, like what are some of the things that I like? What kind of man do I want to be? Like, what do I want to be more about? Like, what do I want to have like some more layers to me kind of thing? Like, what do I like? Um, it was like, that was a huge part of it. And then like, another big thing is like, I had to make a note and then almost convince myself that I believe it, that like my value is not dictated by my output.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have, like I, I need to make sure I'm not defining myself and my identity around like my work and my riding and, pictures and videos and clips and all that. Like I need
Yeah.
to make sure that like I find my own value outside of that, like,
Yeah.
cause it's tough, it's tough. So
Yeah. And you get to be in charge of that and what defines you, right? And your value. It's not just based upon like these things that you see or other people see about you or of you.
yeah, it's like big, big deals there. And then, yeah, like getting that variety going, picking up some other things, work some other skill sets. a big note for mountain bikers. We get pretty obsessed with this stuff. And if you look back at like the roots of everybody's mountain biking, like it's escapism. So like,
Yeah.
when you get injured, like no matter how long the timeline is, like this is the big difference between the timeline is like, if it's a short timeline, you probably need that time off the bike to deal with all the life stuff that you've been putting off because you've been using the bike to escape from it. You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, like,
It gives you some time to look at those things, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, like what are all the things that rather than dealing with or doing or facing that I would just go riding instead?
Yeah.
Like I need to face on. So like there's been some of that and like kind of evaluating life and like looking up and being like, okay, like let's get some plans, let's get some, some goals together, let's get some of that going. It's been pretty eye-opening on that. Just like, not always just being able to be like, it's too much, I'm gonna go ride. Like you have to like face things head on and kind of form your own opinions on that stuff too. So kind of
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean oh my God, I can go on for days about this. Another
Okay,
big
good.
another huge note with an injury is like trust that you're gonna come back hungry. You're gonna be so hungry to ride.
Yeah.
If you'd have caught me towards the end of this summer this year, I was having trouble getting excited about anything less than the best. If it's not like double black, high rated, rad, let's get after it, big stuff, then I was sitting there going like, I don't even want to change my shoes for that, like, it's kind
Yeah.
of ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And then like now
That
I've
happened.
been, yeah, you get kind of spoiled, you get kind of spoiled and you're always looking for that, it's a progressive sport. So that's how it goes.
Yeah,
But
for
like
sure.
right now, months in and I'm still several months from riding. And like I was sitting there the other day thinking to myself, like, dude, I can't wait until the next time I get to pedal down a greenway. Like I'm about pedaling down a greenway. I'm so pumped about doing a wheelie on a sidewalk, you know?
Yeah.
I can't wait, I can't wait to do track stands in a parking lot. Like I can't wait.
Yes,
Like,
dude. Yes. Get
yeah,
excited about the small stuff, right? I
yeah,
think, yeah, you're so right. And Jay, I want to talk about that for a second because, like, the more that you progress and you advance in your writing, you just, I feel like you sometimes you can get less and less excited because you're always working towards that next thing, that next skill, that next progression, and like you're
bigger, better.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, but sometimes you have to come back to a beginner mindset and be like, you know what? I started riding because I loved the feeling of like riding down this like green trail, right? Like you were so stoked about it. So it's important to put that in perspective.
Yeah, that's like that kind of comes like the final part of like coming through an injury is like the comeback. The
Yeah.
come trust that you're going to be hungry for it. And then like if you got on the trails, like nobody has more fun on the trails than like an early intermediate rider. You know,
There's
if you look at like the risk reward ratio for like an early intermediate rider, like nobody is matching that because like got just enough understanding and just enough skill set that like stuff's not stopping them, and they're having breakthroughs every ride, and it's like, you know what, like that's gonna be me here in a few months. Like I'm gonna get on a blue trail, I'm just riding the absolute shit out of every blue trail. And I'm gonna be hopping stuff and manualing and bouncing around and cornering. It's gonna be awesome, it's gonna be breakthrough city. Versus like
yeah,
when you start getting up there more advanced, it starts to get like it takes so much to get, that success or whatever, versus like, you hit that intermediate, you start riding for fun, kind of get more pure with it. It's just straight up just cheap thrills, just cheap
yeah,
thrills. And like, that's what I'm going to be about, like that's what it's all about. And then like understanding that like you just bask in the glory of cheap thrills and having fun. And then next thing you know, like PRs, and you'll be faster than you were, and you'll be
hmm
having fun than you ever were. And you never like were beating up on yourself to get there, because like this is what happens to people when they get injured. It's what happens to people when they get older too. Ask any old moto guy, any old mountain biker. Like if Pop's watching this, I'm talking to you. The older you get, the faster you were. Like, so like
oh,
you go 6 months off the bike and you're thinking back to like, man, I used to be like fast. I used to go big. I used to be really good. Like you get this inflated view of how you actually were when really it's like, you're all right. You know, like you did all right. You weren't as good.
Yeah, get real with yourself.
Yeah. You know, like understand that like you're lying to yourself kind of thing. So like, you know, like the most dangerous thing that happens to people coming back from an injury is they try to play catch up. And they try to play catch up with this like moving target of what they thought they were.
Yeah.
And like that, we get people that get consecutive injuries, they get plagued by injuries. Then all of a sudden, like they go 2 or 3 seasons where like they're hurt, you know, half the year of every year for a couple seasons. Like they never fully recover and they're never having any fun either. So like, you know, it's like, you don't let yourself fall into that trap of trying to play catch up. Like, don't worry about it. Have fun. Go back to your fundamentals. Go back to your intermediate. Bulletproof your fundamentals.
Yeah.
Find stuff like, those basic skills. Don't get where you can just do them. Get where you can do them to the point where like you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Like, bulletproof your fundamentals, and then everything gets better. And then like that's the segue over into the mindset stuff too, that we had talked about talking about here. So, yeah, like it's one of those things. Like don't stack the odds against yourself. And then like whenever you're making your comeback, like don't fall into those traps. Don't fall into those traps. Have fun, stay focused on that, and like don't feel like you need to play catch up because you're lying to yourself. Like that's a moving target that's like it's not real. And every time that I've actually, followed my own words on this and done it, I've looked up and like way earlier than I realized was faster, smoother, and having more fun than I ever was before.
Yeah.
It's like trust the process. Like that's the big thing there. So
Jay, so I rode with Phil the other day, which, doesn't really happen a lot. But anyway, we were riding, and it's like every time I ride with Phil now, we go out and practice what he calls slow flow. And
yeah.
It's literally like through all the Sedona tech, we try to keep our pace, but it's a controlled pace and try to like jib through and find the flow on every single little thing. And it's so fun to, instead of just thinking about like going fast and just like, going over all that stuff, you're really like starting to enjoy the process and like flow through the trail and really appreciate it in those ways. So there's other ways that you can like, again, I love that you said bulletproof your fundamentals, because I think that's so true. Something that's so needed.
Well, like that, what you're talking about right there, you want to talk about build options, like that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, and like I'm a firm believer that like the difference between an advanced rider and an intermediate rider is the amount of options they have and the aggression with which they apply it. Like an intermediate rider, if you present a 2-foot drop, an intermediate rider can do that some way. Like they've got some kind of technique that can get them through that. Okay. And
Yeah.
we'll have about 7 different ways.
Yeah.
So like mixing up your speed, mixing up your techniques, mixing up your options, give yourself those options. And like, that's where you can start, carrying over into your riding. And like, that's a big part of my mindset is like, the 3 big points. You told me to whittle it down to 3 big mindset points. And it was 2 of them are the 2 questions that I ask anybody before they do something rad. And I ask myself before I do anything like bigger, and it's like kind of the map to progression of like going bigger. And like number 1 is like, what have you done to prepare for this?
Yeah.
That's like, if you're looking at hitting a 6-foot drop, like what have you done to get ready for that? Oh, well, I've worn out everything up to about 4 and 5 feet. And, I've done a bunch of drops similar to this. So I've done my homework, I've done my homework kind of thing. And then like the number 2 thing is like, I've got a plan, like I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna do this technique, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna nail it, like this is where I'm gonna do this, and this is where I'm gonna land, and this is how it's gonna go, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And like, number 3 is like, I'm in control. I'm in control. Like that's the biggest mindset thing that I run into with students is like, you see a lot of them that they try to, and just because you watch the video or read the article or whatever, like that doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's just going to work. You know, like you got to take control. And like people that ride really passive, or they're along for the ride, or they're like gambling when they're riding. They're just like, oh, I don't know, you know, like let's see how this goes. Yeah, like that's actually one of my biggest pet peeves. You know, is like you got to take control. You got to
Yeah.
take control, and like that's all up here. You know, it's all up here. It's like this is your bike, this is your tool, this is your body. Like take control and get after it. You know, and like you can practice that with different skill sets, um, like contouring, like staying glued through terrain rather than rattle you.
Yeah.
Hitting drops like that peek and push technique through
Yeah.
like really getting where you can do that, like really on purpose. Uh, you know, like different speeds, building your options. Like it's so huge. Like that mindset of like I'm in control, and like every time before I ride, like I still I get really nervous before I drop into stuff because like yeah, I ride a lot of things blind. I travel all over. I ride stuff blind, and like I do it pretty aggressively.
Yeah.
It's what I like, you know. So like every time before I ride, it's like I'm nervous, and it's one of those things like I have this kind of internal dialogue. It's like okay, like I'm in control. Like this is what I do. Like
Yeah.
this is my
You got
like this is my jam. Like I'm a freaking animal at this. Like I'm about to have so much fun. Like I'm gonna have more fun than anybody else out here. This shit's about to get rowdy, you know, like get some, you know, and then we drop in and it goes, you know, it's like this little like confirmation, like, oh yeah, like this is what I do, this is what I love, you know, like
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
like Jay, that's just such good self-talk, right? Because I
yeah,
know that yeah, it's just like such good self-talk to be like, hey, yeah, I got this. Like I'm a good rider and I got this,
yeah,
right? When you're dropping in and you have that sense of confidence every time, whether it's like hitting something new or a trail that you've rode, 10, 15 times, whatever it is. It's awesome. That's such a good way to think about it.
yeah, you know, like if you're feeling nervous, you're like, you know what, I've done the work, you know, like I've ridden so many rowdy trails, I've ridden some cool stuff, I've ridden a bunch of rad features, I know how to do it, I've done it pretty good. um I got a pretty good plan for it, you know, like it's one of those things like if I'm about to ride a flow trail for the first time, it's like okay, like I'm gonna carry some extra speed and keep my eyes up, and like we're gonna get there, you know, like we're gonna get done, you know. It's one of those things like, you know, like the whole mentality of like don't stare at the gaps, you know, look at the landing, you know, look at the landing, look
Yeah,
at it's gonna be and get there, you know, get
yeah,
there. You know, everybody
yeah,
stare at like the bare minimum for getting to, you know, if they're hitting a jump, they want to stare at the bare minimum to clear the jump, and it's like dude, amp it up a little bit, put some funk on it and get there, you know. Like I come from moto, and I was the guinea pig. Like I said, I was the young guy, and I was always the guinea pig. And one of the things I learned is like if you got a jump or a gap like that, nothing good's going to happen in the gap. Like nothing's going to go well. But if you're a giver and you go a little too far and you're ready to go a little too far, you're probably going to be fine. You know,
yeah,
a little
yeah,
jarring, going to be fine. And so
yeah,
you got to get there, take control, ride with some authority, like ride like you want to, you know, like
yeah.
ride like you want to be there. And like, and that also brings me back. Like I got a big one starred right there. And like, um, and like I'm a straight, I'm gonna call out everybody on this one. Also like a lot of the lady shredders, a lot of the lady shredders out there. I want to kind of call out on this is like,
Hear
stop
it.
yourself. Stop dismissing your own abilities. Stop diminishing yourself. You're about to drop into a trail. Stop with that. Like, oh, you're going to be way faster than me, or like, oh, I'm not a good rider, or like, oh, I'm not in shape, like whatever. It's like, dude, stop that crap, because if you keep saying that stuff, you're going to start believing it yourself.
Yes.
You know?
And go first.
Yeah.
Just go first. Like I feel like I say this too many times, but I got so tired of that, Jeremiah. It was one thing that I was like, you know what? I just started noticing it in the women's groups that I ride in, but also with myself a little bit. And I was like, no, I'm going first. Like my friends do not care. They want to ride bikes with me, but also I didn't want to start to believe those things. I was like, no, I got this. Like I'm a confident rider. I know I'm a good rider. I'm going to go ahead. Like, and I would just stop that negative self-talk and be like, again, like you said, when you drop into something like, I got this, I'm good. Like, let's go. Right.
Yeah. if you feel like you need to do something like that, I mean, if you are riding with people that are fitter or better or whatever, like flip the script on it for your own sake, like negative self-talk, like the biggest thing you can learn about negative self-talk is if you do that crap, you'll start believing it.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem with negative self-talk. Like it's not harmless. Like
Yeah.
if you need to do something like that, switch it up and like hype up the other people. Don't talk shit about yourself. Like if I'm riding with somebody that's way fitter and I'm like, like way better on it or whatever, I'll be like, hey man, like get some, like have a good time out there. And then like when we get to the bottom, like don't be surprised if, like I'll catch you up. It's all good. You're like, let's have some fun out here, Like, but don't just be like talking trash about yourself, man. You'll start believing that crap. You can't be doing that. Like if you need to hype up everybody else around you and then drop in, like most fun wins. Like that's the thing, like most fun wins. Like
also I feel like nobody wants to ride with that person, right? The person that's always like, oh, I'm not good enough. You go ahead, you do this. Like, oh, I can't do that. Like all of these, like nobody wants to ride with that person, right?
No, like, and that negative self-talk, like the kind of people, everybody knows that person that's like starts talking about like, oh, I never get this climb that's coming up. Like you're still 100 yards away from this thing, like you're telling me, you're already telling me you're not going to get it, like don't stop that. Stop that. Like get up there and come. And if you mess up and have to walk it, fine, like fine. That whole thing, like I just stop diminishing yourself. Like that's the biggest mindset thing is like stop dismissing your own self and stop dismissing your skills. Like start riding on purpose and start thinking on purpose and take control of the whole scene, like that's
Jay, I think, and I put this on that post that I put up last night because you sent it to Phil and I as a Christmas card. And one thing that you put on there is your potential is endless. And I just love that so much because I believe that. I 100% believe that for people and myself and for you and all of my friends, because there is no limit to what kind of rider that you can be or what kind of human that you can become. And if you are always progressing in a way that is making you better and becoming a better person, better rider, you're like way ahead of the game, right? I love the.
Well, like everybody's in it for some kind of progression and for some kind of goal, it's like, it's like, riding with intention, riding with goals. And I put that in quotations because like, you got to understand kind of the psychology of that because everybody's goals can be different. Every ride can be different. Like you got to determine like what is your metric for success?
Yeah.
What is your metric for success? Sometimes I go out and ride. My metric for success is I need to scout this place. I need to put on a really good clinic. So that's a whole different ride. I'm riding slow. I'm looking at things. I'm checking stuff out. Like that's a whole different experience. Sometimes my metric for success is like, I want a PR on the clock on this one. Like, okay, like here's how I'm going to do it. And then sometimes it's like, oh man, like somebody's down there with a camera, like that's a whole different for success, right?
Yeah.
Or like the group ride thing, like, you got on a group ride with some people and, like you don't want to just go out there and it just be like, oh, I'm going to try and outrun everybody. Unless it is that type of group ride, then you do. Yeah. But like if it's not that, then go back to like that kind of riding you and Phil are doing, like slow it down and play and have fun. Because like, there's a big thing I've learned as an instructor is like a lot of people don't know what's possible on a bike until they see it.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know. So like they've never seen somebody, bump, jump and hip over to something or, go up some rocks or, hit a gap and go to the back slope. Like there's all these things like people don't know what that is until they see it done. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay. Like how many times have you had somebody following you through jumps? They're like, I've never cleared that, but I was just following you and I did.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
It's like kind of determine like what's your metric for success and then like riding accordingly.
And you see what's possible, which is great, right? And and anything else that they're capable of.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, you unlock the potential in other people. You get to build your skill set, of course, always, and you get just like you have more fun, right? You have more fun, like like that's a big the big thing there. Like that metric for success and understanding that about yourself in each setting is it kind of goes back to like, disappointment has like a very clear formula. Like disappointment happens whenever your expectation and the reality of an experience don't line up. Okay.
Yeah.
Think like the last time you went to a movie, or watched a movie on at home, because it's been
Yeah.
years, right? So
Yeah.
like, if you got this movie that everybody's been hyping up, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is sick! It's sick! It's best movie ever!" And you're sitting there and like you start falling into that. You're like, "This is gonna be a sick movie," and you watch it, and it doesn't quite live up to that expectation. You're disappointed.
Yeah.
Versus like, what about that movie? You're like, I don't know. Let's try this out. No expectations. It turns out decent. You're pumped. Like same thing with your riding. Like if you got, if you line up your expectations with the ride and then execute it and nail it in reality, like you're going to be so pleased with that experience, so pleased with that ride. And like I think like that's going to be the big thing. Like when I'm coming back onto the bike, is like
Yeah.
every ride, making sure that my expectations are in line with where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that way, like, it'll be so much fun that like I can't wait to do it again. Can't wait to do it again. Rather than it being like a constant like coming up short or
Yeah.
feeling behind kind of thing, or like playing catch up. Like that's where it all kind of comes together like that. So
Yeah. Jay, I wrote down that quote. It was like when we were like coaching a clinic together in Sedona for Ninja, and it was and I like quoted you because I remember you saying it. I was like, I'm writing that down. And you said progression is not fear-based, and I love that so much because I think a lot of times people will think of like, take like a drop for instance, and they're like really working on hitting this drop, and they're like, oh, I want to get a coach to like push me out of my comfort zone. And I don't think that's really the right way to think about it, because it's not you pushing you out of comfort zone. It's something that you are prepared for, right? Because you shouldn't come into, say, maybe your goal is to hit that 6-foot drop. Okay, like you said, what have you been doing to get you to that point? Are you hitting the 4-foot drop like clean every single time with perfect form? Are you hitting the 5-foot drop clean, perfect? And I really think, but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to ask you, like, what does that mean to you? Like, progression is not fear based.
it's really interesting. I've actually kind of modified that mantra. I've switched out fear with risk.
Yeah.
And I tell myself, and I try to make sure to tell clinics too, is like progression is not risk based.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, wait, what? Like, you don't get better by just being willing to take risks.
Yeah.
Because like that's gambling, and like you're not always going to win. Like,
Dude.
if you want to expand your comfort zone, it comes from seat time, and it comes from riding stuff and doing things more on purpose and building your options. Focus practice will lead to consistency, and then consistency is what leads to the confidence. And I'm not talking about like an ego-based confidence. I'm talking about like a trust-based confidence. So like I said, I ride blind. I love it. I love, that it's one of those things I tell people a lot of times when I come off a trail, like it's a shame you only get to ride that one for the first time once. Like it's so much fun to do that, because like you expand your comfort zone by giving yourself options. So
Yeah.
like with those drops, I've done this for a couple of my clinics. I'll show them like a 1 or 2 foot drop. I'll show them a couple good ways, and we'll work on ways to hit it, for them. But I've gone through and in one same setup with just like the landway boxes, show them 7 different ways to hit the same feature.
Yeah.
You build your options, and like that's how you get that confidence. Like I can consistently do 5 out of 7 of those options. I can do every time and do them consistently, which means I can be confident in that skill set. When I roll up on drops, I can hit them. There's a lot of drops I can hit blind, a lot of jumps I can hit blind. If I just keep my eyes up and can see the landing, I can make that decision in the moment. So like, that's how your comfort zone is with expanding your options.
Yeah.
Options, and then riding with intention and riding on purpose. It's that whole kind of thing. Like keep your eyes up, staying in position. Like you take these fundamentals, you put them to work, and you set the stage to have that as an option to do all these things. And then like another big thing is, now we could go into a whole other show on this, and like teaching people how to actually like walk up to a feature and look at it and actually accomplish something with standing there looking at it or walking around it.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the big thing. A lot of people like don't know how to do and don't do well. It's like they walk up and like they don't really know like what they're looking at to figure out, you know. So like I like to do this with like if I'm talking really advanced drops, you gotta talk about like, of course you better be nailing any size under this without any hesitation at all. But like a big one, or like the shot from Highland, where that I put on my story.
Yeah, what's that big drop called?
I don't know what it's called, but it's huge. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Isn't it called like
I don't even know. I saw it from the lift. I was like, you know, I was like, we need to go step that one off and take a look. And it was one of those things like, it's about double what I would consider big, you know. It's a big drop, you know. And it was one of those things like I walked up and I started looking at it, like I know how to look at those things. Like with advanced drops, you look at it in terms of math. I like to use math and metrics because it helps me to, you know, remove my own weirdness and craziness and subjectiveness, you know. Like I want to be objective with it. So like when I look at a drop, I look at like, you know, how much drop is there vertical drop versus how much out do I need to cover, and a ratio. So if it's you know, a 5 foot drop with 10 feet out, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. So like I know the exact speed that needs. That's about a jogging pace, you know, pretty basic trail pace will get me there. You know, and that's because I've hit a ton of 3 foot drops and stepped them off and figured out that they were a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, you know, you take that same skill set and then you go find one that's, you know, like a 3-to-1 ratio. So like, you know, say you're looking at a drop that's now it's 5 feet worth of drop, but you've got to get 15 feet out there. That's a little different.
Yeah.
And so you 3-footer and you start realizing like, oh, like I got to carry some more speed. I might need to pre-hop a little bit. It's a different technique.
Totally.
And I can take that ratio and I can take it step by step to a little bit bigger. So I can take it from 3 feet to 4 feet to 5 feet to 6 feet. And then like that one, I don't know. I wanted to say that one was somewhere around like 14 or 15.
Dude, it looks cute.
Like,
oh, I told Phil, I was like, I want to go look at this thing. I mean, it just looks so huge in the photo. I'm like, what is that really like? I feel like stuff like that never does it justice. And I'm like, holy cow, that just looks so big. Was that like one of the biggest drops that you've hit?
Yeah. Well, and like also understanding like that day itself, like it wasn't just like show up and look at that one. It was like I saw it and I was like, man, I kind of want to go step that off at some point if I'm feeling strong.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, throughout the day, like we rolled up on like an 8-footer and like I hit it and I was like, man, I felt great. And then we rolled up on like an 11-footer with kind of a weirder roll in and like I hit it. So like I kind of built up and then like I was feeling good. So I went and stepped it off and I was like, I got this. You know, I know exactly how this needs to feel. You know, I know exactly how the approach needs to be. Like, here we go. So like, you know, it's, you know, like building that. If you want the confidence, it goes all the way back to focused practice, not just going out and winging it.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Go find like a 2-foot drop or something you're comfortable with and hit it a bunch of different ways. Try different ways, you know, like throw a stick out there that's a couple feet further, see if you can get there, you know, try to hit it slower, try to hit it faster, you know, really mix it up and like, you know, create that, you know, where you know what's going on, you know, the whys and the hows of what's happening, you know, like that's huge. And then that's every step along the way. You know, a lot of people, they're like, oh, 15-foot drop with, you know, 30 something feet worth of gap. Like, no, I'm never. And then I'm like, whoa. Like, I understand, but like, you learn this the same place I learned it, which is on a curb.
Yeah.
Like, like every time about drops, I learned on a curb.
Yeah.
Like, and
It's understanding the fact that you didn't go from just like the curb to there. There
yeah,
was a process. There was a progression between that time and the time that you hit the drop, right?
yeah. Like, for me, hitting that drop, there was no risk, there was no fear, like
Yeah.
none there. Like the thing was is like I was sitting there, it's like, man, like you have to fight through like the jitters, like the adrenaline. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like you breathe, like I knew what to do, and like I did the math. I thought about all the other stuff I'd been hitting. I thought about it. It's like, man, like this is happening. And like, it's one of those things like when you ride and your progression and when you're doing things like that, it's like it's a celebration of skills, not
Yeah.
reaching for skills. Like when you go out and you do something and you're looking, and you're doing something that's super progressive, like it's not, don't let it be a gamble. It's like, you're not always going to gamble. And like, don't let that be the first time you address that skill or like what needs to happen there.
Yeah.
Don't wait until it's do or die time.
Yeah.
Go figure it out in the environment, get to know what's going on. Like there's a good comment right there from Jeff. After you hit it, you're like, hey, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like you hit it, you go well, and you're like, oh, that's exactly what that was supposed to feel like. And you know what I did the first time I hit that thing? I hustled back up and I hit it again so that I would.
Yeah. It's not just one and done, right?
Like, man, I love it.
Yeah, especially if it's something like that. I'm like, okay, I'm hitting this thing like 3 times so that I know I got it, right?
Yeah, it felt great. I want to do it again. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Like do it again. I'm like, whoo, that was awesome. Like I'm gonna do it again. Like, nail it, and like it locks it in. And like when we built Drop the Hammer, like that was the biggest drop I'd ever hit up until that. Up until we built Drop the Hammer. We built it, and it's like, oh crap, this is big. You couldn't get me off of that thing. I would go out and like I had my own little like social trail after the next hit where I would curl around and come back and do it again. And I would go up there and like I'll go up there and like a few people would hit it like once and then chill out. I'm lapping it, so like pretty soon, here I'm hitting, I think that one's like 8 or 9 feet, something like that. And like I'm hitting it over and over and like that's, super consistent. I'm not even afraid, like it barely even gets the heart rate up.
Yeah.
Then whenever I roll up on like a 10-footer, all right, let's see what the ratio is. What does this need? Okay, boom, boom, boom. It's going to be the same way that one feels. I'm good to go. So, like that's the thing.
I feel like what you're talking about is like kind of what I say sometimes is because sometimes, well, a lot of times actually, people will compare their riding or even just like in skills coaching, I talk about a lot of times to other people's, and it's like, no, get excited about your own shit, man. You're amazing. Like, who cares what they're doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, stay focused on your thing and get excited about your own shit, right?
Yeah. It's like there's 2 good like quips. I got all the little one-liners. That's works like from yoga. I'm sure this one from all the yoga teaching. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Oh yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy. If you're always comparing, like, guess what? There's always people that have either outworked you or know the trail better than you do or are just more talented than you. Whatever it might be, there's always those people, and like you're always comparing to them, like expectation to reality, right? Expectation to reality, right? Like it's like if you're gonna go ride Grand Central with Phil, like, you think anybody's going to accomplish anything trying to compare themselves to the way Phil's Grand Central experience there? Like, no. Like he's got that, like he's so he's got his own experience where he's up there having a blast, and you know what? Like he'll drop you.
Oh, so fast.
Yeah, and guess what? He's not trying to.
Yeah.
Like some people, like it's fine, and like that's one of the big things I've learned from like travel riding and all that is like, like there's plenty of people faster. There's plenty of people that go bigger. There's plenty of people that do things different. But like, you know what? Ain't nobody out here going to have more fun than me.
Yeah.
You know, like that's all there is to it. I'm about to have a blast, you know, like I'm absolute blast.
I love it. I think it's like you gotta like refocus when you start doing that and comparing yourself. It's like, okay, hey, ask yourself a couple of questions like, why do I ride my bike? It's for fun. I mean, that's why I ride my bike. But like put it into context, right? Like get
Well,
it
think
together.
the slippery slope of that comparison. Like you start in with that comparison, like everybody's done this, everybody's felt this, everybody's had rides that were defined by this. You start comparing yourself to somebody that's just having more fun than you. That might be
Yeah.
faster, more stylish, whatever. As soon as you start doing that, you start making excuses for why you're not doing it the same way they are.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start making excuses, then you start coming down on yourself and it turns into negative self-talk. And then next thing you know, like you're diminishing your own experience. You're starting to believe that crap,
Yeah.
you know, and like, it's one of those things
Yeah.
like, and all of a
That's
sudden, like here you are in this beautiful place on this rad trail riding with friends and you're miserable,
yeah.
you know, and it's like, and you're
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes we have to zoom out. Like Becca says this, we have to zoom out and be like, see the bigger picture. Like, dude, you are. I say this a lot of times when I'm coaching. I'm like, look where you are in the world right now. We are riding bikes in Sedona, Arizona. Look at all this red rock. Look how amazing. Like we are living and breathing. We are healthy. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like seeing the bigger picture of what's going on there instead of like you in your head so much being like, oh, I can't do that, you know?
Yeah. Like I can't do that. What's wrong with me? You know, like all that, you know, excuses and all that. Yeah. We're adults riding bicycles,
I know.
you know, like, we're adults riding bicycles. And you know why we're adults riding bicycles? It's because we got a good dose of how much fun it is to ride bikes with your friends back when we were like 10.
Yeah.
You know, like we're replicating, you know, this kind of feeling and like, but then like we do the adult thing to do, which is to start getting in your own way,
Oh yeah.
start self-sabotaging and start like, you know, taking the fun out of it with whatever reason and all that. And it's like, man, like get pure with it, get pure, refocus, all that, you know, like, and with the mindset there is like, take control of the experience, take control of the experience. Like when you get on your bike, why are you getting on your bike? You know, sometimes it's, you know, like I had a rough week and like, I just need to burn some steam. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the time for PRs. That's not the time for going for style. Like that's the time to go out and like, let's just find some flow and try to feel good. You know, I call it, you know, quiet the noise. I did,
Yeah.
a buddy of mine does this, he did this Why I Ride project. And, and I wrote up the thing for it and it was pretty cool because like, I started thinking back, like, why do I love the bike so much? Like, why do I love it? And I started thinking back, like, man, you know, it's a big part of my personality was developed based on what the bike does for me, like mentally and emotionally. Of like, I can take like all this, like whatever I'm feeling here, feeling bottled up, I can get on that bike, and all of a sudden, like I feel in control.
Yeah.
I, I'm in control. I can go wherever I want to be. I can get away from whatever I want to get away from. You know, like I can, and like that sensation is so good, it's so pure. And it was you know, my big thing, it was like why I ride is to quiet the noise, you know, because like when I ride, like that's whenever the whole world just goes,
Yeah.
and I get focused and I get out there and I have so much fun and I ride with power, I have a good time, and like I get 100% just pure focus flow, have a blast. And then like it's the best addiction ever, you know. And like,
Sure.
and like I don't ever want to be like, there's plenty of other things in life that try to get between you and that amazing feeling. Don't let yourself be one of those things, you know, that gets between you and that feeling, you know. So like, yeah, I mean, that's one of the huge ones is like, you know, getting that headspace right, getting that mindset right, you know, like that's where you do it. Like tell you like you're good enough to have fun on your bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Starting, like be smart.
Yeah.
Like if you're starting out, like don't drop in on a double black trail and hope for the best. Like like get out,
Yeah.
go ride some stuff, and like you're good enough to have fun on your bike. And if
Yeah.
everybody else is going faster than you, like they're good enough to have a different kind of fun on their bike.
Yeah. And
You know,
that's okay. Yeah.
that doesn't change the kind of fun I'm having on my bike, though.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, and that's all. That all happens up here. It all
Yeah.
happens. So
Dude, Jay, you're so amazing. Thank you.
I love that stuff, man. Like the
I
mind.
feel like so many good nuggets in here because there's a lot of people who A, can't get on their bike right now because of weather. B, some of my friends are injured like yourself right now and just like going through that funk, dealing with depression, anxiety, just like, not in a great place. And I don't know. Thanks for bringing some light to that because I think it needs to be heard and to let people know that like you're not the only one who
Uh,
deals with
it's like
it.
that big thing, like that. How do you stay positive through an injury? Well, understand that you won't.
You're not going to. Yeah.
But like, and another thing, like an injury should be an interruption. It
Yeah.
should get in the way of your plans. It should
Yeah.
stop the momentum that you had. That's how it works. Like if you didn't have anything else going for it to interrupt, like what does that say about what you're doing? Like, yeah, you got a lot of good stuff going and you're gonna have more good stuff going.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
got good stuff going. Like an injury should feel like an interruption. And like, but remember it's not a punishment. It's part of the cycle, part of the seasons. I wrote an article several years ago that was about like honoring the seasons, and like that's how you watch like people in places that have like a true winter.
Yeah.
Their cycle of like they get back on the bike and like they kind of get their fitness back and then they get their skill set back and then they have fun and then like they reach this good point of progression and then it kind of winds down and winter comes back in and they settle out like they still have a great experience and they don't get hurt as much and they don't deal with as much weird mental stuff because like when they reset like every season they get a handful of those rides that are just like look at those flowers,
I
like look
know.
at the tree, like this is nice, but like people like they start to get like taking themselves so serious and they don't have any kind of like seasonal aspect and they just want to like crescendo, just always building up, always bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster. Like, guess what? That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
At some point, like at some point, like something's got to give, and like, it'll either be your body or your equipment or like something's got to give. So like, honoring the seasons and just respecting the cyclical nature of everything. And like, I had another note in there, like an injury, like it's you remember Etch a Sketches? We're going to show
Oh,
our here. The Etch a Sketch, sit there, you draw the thing. Like when you
yeah.
don't picture anymore, you turn it upside down, you shake it, and then
Yeah.
you start over. And like I like to think about the whole process and the cycles, and like it's a chance to like kind of refocus. Like what kind of rider do I want to be in my next chapter? Like I said, I've come back from several injuries. I've had injuries where like I came back and I wanted to be the racer. I wanted
Yeah.
to I've come back and I'm like, I want to be the styly one. I had comebacks where it was like, I want to be endurance. I want to get into that side of things. And then, it's like, what kind of rider or like, even think bigger, like what kind of human do I want to be?
Yeah.
On this, like, as I recover from this, like, I'm going to shake my Etch a Sketch. I'm going to draw another picture and we're going to see what that one looks like.
Dude,
Yeah.
I can't wait what your next one looks like. I know it's going to be a good one, especially after you've been off the bike for this long. I'm like, holy shit, I can't even believe it. I'm also just like, I don't know. I'm really excited to see you and Becky and the pups again and
Oh yeah.
reconnect hopefully this summer sometime, which will be cool. So,
Mm-hmm.
dude, again, Jay, thank you so much for coming on today, man. You're
Uh,
amazing.
my pleasure. I love these things. I love it.
And
Thanks everybody for tuning in, man. I
yeah,
really appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah, well, I will I will post this so that other people can watch it because I know some people couldn't make it to the live here. And then, yeah, we can both reshare it. And dude, keep up with that healing process. You are killing it. I know you have those good and bad days, but that's just part of the process. And yeah, anything else you want to say, Jay?
Oh man, I think in honor of Joanna here, we ought to fire up that hashtag Shiro. That's
Yeah.
an actor. You're hustling. I love seeing it. Like what you're doing for people and helping people address that positive self talk, getting that mindset going. Like it's not always like what's the line from Big Lebowski? Like it ain't always strippers and burritos, my friend. You know,
Yeah.
like it's not always rosy and happy. Like sometimes you got to take a little bit of that like that kind of aggro energy and flip it and use it for the good. You know, it's still energy. You know,
Totally.
you know,
Totally.
like internal dialogue. Like sometimes you line up and look at a trail and be like, I'm a bad mother. You know, like I'm about to get this. You know, like you know, like it's a good day to die. Let's drop in. You know, you know,
Yeah.
you know. Like turn it up. You know, get more out of life. Get more into it. You know, feel what you feel. Get after it. Um, you know, use the energy. I love seeing what you're doing for people. I love seeing what you're creating. Keep at it, keep going at it, and just know that like you, my friend, are creating value for a lot of people. And keep it up.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate you. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll make sure and post this later. Jay, I'll talk to you later. Give those puppies a cuddle for me. Say hi to Becky, and I'll talk to you soon.
Will do.